Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the greatest NZ live political podcast in the world, The Working Group, hosted by beloved left-wing broadcaster Comrade Bomber Bradbury, with the best political panel in New Zealand media, reviewing the week, setting the agenda, avoiding defamation. The Working Group is brought to you by Gravity Credit Management. When the weight of capitalism is becoming the event horizon of an imploding black hole, call 0800 Gravity, and our team will get blood out of a stone. That's 0800 Gravity. This is The Working Group.
Kia ora Aotearoa, I'm your host, the editor of the daily blog, Martin Bradbury. Bomber to my comrades, Mr. Bradbury if you're nasty. My preferred pronouns are and please don't hurt my family. This is The Working Group, New Zealand's bestest and greatest weekly political podcast that is not funded by New Zealand On Air. We stream live from the MediaWorks Auckland studio, 7:30 p.m. Mondays on Facebook, YouTube, and the Daily Blog. The podcast is available afterwards on Apple Podcast, Rover, Spotify, and YouTube. Joining me tonight to dissect the three big issues of the political week is the greatest political panel in New Zealand broadcasting. Right. He's the only stuff columnist worth reading. That's not even a joke. I mean, that's not even comedy. That's just a straight fact, right? He's the Ctullah of capitalism, the libertarian liquidator, Mr. All Taxes Theft, the one, the only Damien Grant.
Kia ora, comrade.
He is a right-wing Loki, the architect of the Death Star, moral shepherd of the right, political commentator and recreational Sith Lord, Matthew Hooton. Welcome.
Welcome.
And he's a former Labour Chief of Staff and left-wing Obi Won Kenobi. If you've got a windmill, he's got a jousting stick. The perpetual revolution that is union boss, Matt McCarten. Welcome to the show.
Kia ora, brother.
Tonight's issue one. How was Luxon's first week? Can National win with him? Issue two, the latest Roy Morgan poll. The last one for the year is out. And issue three, best and worst of politics 2021. Plus, we'll have a final word at the end of the show where each panelist gets 90 seconds to rant on any topic they want. Let's see if we can breach broadcasting standards this year. Let's kick things off tonight with issue one. So Luxon has emerged as the winner of the latest National Party leadership coup. He managed to not trip over himself and lacerate any bystanders, and by recent National Party standards, that's a remarkable success. No one burst into flames and no one was killed. How was his first week, and what does National need to do to win the 2023 election? Mr. Hooton, Luxon wins because Judith's lunatic fringe and the Muller backers in caucus spite voted for him. Is Luxon the best leader for National or the best leader who isn't Simon Bridges?
Well, John Key denies it, of course, and I think we would obviously take the former Prime Minister's word for that, that he had nothing to do with.
Nothing.
He made no calls specifically saying you should vote for Christopher Luxon. And I think we could.
How Luxon sounds like Key now.
I think we could. Yeah, he does a bit. He does a bit. Sort of slightly high pitched, but anyway, he. I think it's probably true that John Key didn't say to anybody, "I'm ringing you so that you vote for Christopher Luxon." He probably said, "Oh, g'day, mate. Just wanting to have a bit of a chat about the leadership. How do you think things are going?" and things like that. And I think that led to people knowing what they were meant to do. Nicola Willis, also a former Key staffer. So while I think we accept the former Prime Minister's word, it is something like a Key resurrection.
But is this the best leader National can have, or just someone who's not Simon Bridges?
Well, Simon Bridges did manage to achieve a record that not even Judith Collins managed to break.
What was that?
The highest net unfavourable ratings of any political figure.
Come on. You've been paid for that, assassin.
No. I didn't even know it.
You've got the check.
Talk to David Farrell.
Can we move on?
There has been an improvement on that, but that high negatives and the caucus. I think he's got some people in there that just feel that.
Bridges, it couldn't be him. And rather than getting Damien excited, right? And I don't mean this in too disrespectfully, but he was kind of a boy in a man's suit. He didn't quite.
This is Bridges.
This is Bridges, right? And they had to go with Luxon. There was no choice. As soon as it came out, it had to be Luxon, right? They had to make the break You know, they've gone with Bridges, there's another retread, the same problems go on and on. Bridges is competent enough. You know?
Right.
You know, and so, but he wasn't the person who had to take that job. It had to be Luxon, didn't have a choice. And so he's got the job. He hasn't really put much wrong because people are yearning for National to get themselves together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, it's been fun and all that, right? But now the lockdown's finishing, it's back to normal. And they want a real opposition because Jacinda's just had a honeymoon from heaven. You know, we're going to talk about the poll soon. But you know, people saying there's got to be an opposition. So Luxon is the right man for the time. I think he is, you know, he's on the right, but he's been a CEO, so he's not stupid, you know. And
Depends how you define the right.
I'm putting you up on this.
He's not right like you and I are, or you in particular.
I'm talking about mainstream right, not fringe.
I can think we can all be fairly sure that Christopher Luxon, like John Key, will be a competent and cautious and prudent custodian of the welfare state that they inherited from their predecessors.
Well, that's what the National Party's for.
Exactly. I mean, there is nothing in this guy's DNA that we have seen to date that will indicate that he is anything. This guy is not Roger Douglas, nowhere near it. Whatever turns up on the day, he will manage it, and you can see that when he was.
And that's what New Zealanders want.
And that is what.
That's what they vote for. Sadly,
we want the return of the competent bureaucratic apparatchik.
So, Damien, Luxon pushed aside media criticism of him not knowing how much his house property went up by, but the vast majority of those with a mortgage religiously checked their property valuations. It came across like Luxon was so rich he hasn't noticed a valuation rise. How electorally appealing is that?
We've got 7 houses.
Well, look, I mean, I think the criticism is unfair because, like Luxon, I too had no idea how much his property values had gone up in the last year. But I don't think it's a criticism that's going to wash with the public. I don't think people genuinely care. If people are looking at politics and saying, what's in it for me? People are going to elect the person that they think is going to generate the best economic outcome for them, and if they are confident that it's Luxon, then I think his wealth is of no moment in exactly the way as Jacinda Ardern's relative lack of wealth when she was elected is also of no moment.
Matt, what does National need to do to win back the 419,000 voters who walked away from them, and can Luxon do it?
Well, not be insane. That's the first thing they should do. I mean, look, and I think this guy, they just got to be steady. You know, that Jacinda, the shine is coming off. People are starting to think, okay, you know, so they want to see this guy. This guy was really Muller with talent.
Right,
experience.
right.
So like Muller was from Central Casting, but he had no lines.
Yeah.
Right? He came apart. So this guy's been a CEO. People like that. You know, it's the key Mark II, as you say, Matthew. You know,
well, no, we deny that. Remember,
and of course. The provinces, I think the groundswell, you know, I sort of thought as having a deputy, I think that Willis Shea is the right choice for a new leader. I get that. But it would have been, they need to put one of their provincial people on the front bench, you know, with that job, because the groundswell campaigns, on, you know, in provinces are the key to get National back in. But
they're already voting National.
No, they're going to act.
Right.
They've got to get the vote. The vote
That's
in the provinces.
No,
it's not. Not for National.
They've got to what they need to do is get the 500,000 people who
which
switched
went to Labour.
They're the ones that matter.
To Labour. As long as they keep moderate, don't rock the boat, they'll get them back.
Well, let's talk about that, Matthew. How does National win the centre if they're constantly fighting ACT for the right? How do you win that?
Don't fight ACT for the right.
So leave them at their
ACT
highs?
will fall in the polls just because people. They don't have to do anything about ACT. And ACT's success, it's best for National for ACT to be a sustainable party in that sort of 7, 8, 9% of the vote, and that's where they'll probably settle back, maybe a bit higher this time. And National just has to go after those people that did vote for Clark, Key, probably English and now Ardern.
Yeah.
Those are the people that matter in this country.
Damien, you wouldn't expect a pilot with 1 year's job experience to become the CEO of Air New Zealand. Why should an MP with a year's experience become leader?
What, you're asking me to defend the appointment of Luxon? I wrote a column condemning the appointment of Luxon.
I forgot that.
I have no time. I think last time I compared him to the Duke of Wellington, one of the best military generals that England ever had. The Prime Minister was a complete disaster and a train wreck. But an answer to your question, a serious answer to your question. We have seen in the last 100 years the emergence of a managerial class as separate from the capitalist class.
Yeah.
So there is a world of difference between somebody like Sam Morgan and somebody like Chris Luxon. Chris Luxon has never built anything. He's never done anything other than competently manage somebody else's capital. And managing complex, large systems like Unilever and like Air New Zealand is a skill. It's a real skill and a talent.
Yeah.
And I think that Christopher Luxon will be very effective at managing first the National Party, and then ultimately, I think in 2 years, very likely to be managing the
30,000 bureaucrats in Wellington, because those 30,000 people aren't being managed or led at the moment.
And he's a competent manager.
Yeah, and he will know how to deploy that bureaucracy to deliver on some of the things he says he cares about. I suppose a bit more, compared with Key, a little bit more in education, a little bit more on climate change, and that's be the two differences.
And that's the fundamental difference, isn't it, between Labour and National? National pick their MPs from the managerial prick class. They're bullies, they're terrible human beings, and they can take cattle prods to public servants and force those buggers to do stuff. Labour wants to have a hooey and a cuddle, and everyone comes along for a chat.
Oh, I think Helen Clark...
And they don't get anything done. They?
Helen Clark knew how to get the 30,000 bureaucrats. Well, there weren't so many in her time.
No, there was only 15.
Yeah, and obviously Longy and Douglas knew how to get things done. So I think this particular government we have is quite unique in New Zealand history to be quite as popular and as good on the performative aspects of the job, and just 10 out of 10 on all of that. And just so uniquely incompetent on anything except for those things. I mean, it's extraordinary how incompetent they are. They cannot do anything. They cannot remember to order a vaccine during a global pandemic. So, this is an unusual time and an unusual government.
I just want to pick up, because you've made this comment before. I can't remember, was it publicly or privately, but you were talking about the competence of this administration with your experience of past administrations, and you were quite scathing.
Well, the whole culture of politics has changed. That it's just about brands, personal brands, smiling and waving.
How different was that from Key, though? Come on, that was the ultimate smile and wave.
Key was the transition from serious people, whether you love, Holyoake, Kirk, Muldoon, Longy, Bolger. These were serious people. Clark was an incredibly serious person, and then sort of Key was in the middle, and now we've got what we've got.
So
Matt,
he took us on that journey.
Matt, how does Labour fight Luxon? How do you fight him from the left?
Well, he is a threat. There's no question. I mean, I think that I know that Damien's right when he talks about the managerial class, and the capitalist class are two different beasts. And capitalists make bad politicians because they used to get in their way.
Yeah.
They can where a bureaucrat, because all politics is about managing bureaucracies anyway. Right. So I think that this guy is a threat. He's had a good couple of weeks, and because the Nats have fallen behind because they haven't got anything else. So they've got to just play ball, and he's going to be a moderate and bring the people in and manage them. He's going to be fine. I think when Damien says about his centrism view, it is interesting that he thought the minimum wage was $28 an hour. At the same time, he was opposed to the minimum wage going up. So there is that kind of like this guy's a bit out of touch, but he'll pick it up. I think what Labour, this is the first time they've had a joy run. They've never had to really do much. They've had the COVID. They've had the shooting down in Christchurch. They had White Island. It's been a gift for them. And in a crisis, everyone rallies around. So they're going to have their thing. I would have thought they would have been coasting to a third term. I think they'll still will get it. But, boy, they're going to have to work for it now for the first time.
Quick round to all of you. Mr. Hooton, how do you rate Luxon's first week out of 10?
Oh, good 7.5, 8.
That's a good, Damien.
I'd give him 8.
Matt?
What did you say?
8.
Oh, I'd say 6, just because I couldn't do the same as Matthew.
We have to move on, comrades, to issue 2. The latest Roy Morgan poll for 2021 came out on Friday, and it shows for the first time ever that the combined vote of National plus ACT plus Māori Party was greater than the combined vote of Labour and Greens. Will a relatively safe summer, thanks to the 90% vaccination rate, re-spark a Labour Party romance with voters, or has the rot set in? Damien, ACT on 17.5%. Does Luxon represent the political ceiling for that ACT?
No. A competent Luxon will.
Yes.
I think the jury is still out on that. I think there are a number of landmines, and I think Luxon will navigate them. But I think ACT was probably at their peak anyway, because people were turned off, right-wing voters were turned off by National. But they keep quoting that figure, throwing the Māori Party in with National and ACT. I don't know why people do that. It
makes them feel better.
But I mean,
it's not true.
I know the Māori Party quite clearly would stay with this government. But if you take the Māori Party out, there's now 2% difference between the combined left and the combined right. You add Māori Party in, and there's 4%. Which is still a win for the current government, and the government's had a reasonably bad run, I would say, in the last during that particular poll. But the Taxpayers Union and Courier are running a poll now, and
yes.
that poll began the day after Luxon took office. Hopefully, the result should be out this week, and
what is Hooton telling you that result will be?
Hooton is not a member of the Taxpayers.
So it hasn't been done yet. I mean, it's underway now.
It's
so it'll be
underway.
interesting. I mean, that poll is pretty reputable. It was the first one that had National at, I think, 20.
Yeah.
And so there's no. It's a real poll, and it's by Courier, who is John Key's long-term pollster. So.
And Faraz, one of the best in the games. Matt, the Māori Party have described Labour's vaccination rollout as, and I quote, modern genocide, and compared it to the Squid Games. How much antagonism between Labour and the Māori Party can occur before it starts damaging any possible coalition post-2023?
Well, the problem with that dynamic, forget the retro, because that's just it's just what it is. But the problem which the Māori Party's always had, right? Their natural coalition partner is also their competitor,
right?
And so in fact, it was Matthew who put the idea in another life when we were younger. Is that it was a natural thing for the National Party to get that party at least neutralised, because they weren't competing with the right for the vote. So that's where that. But then they got smashed, right? So they know that lesson. The Māori Party now is a more left-wing party. When Tari Ana was there, it was more centrist, and they were bitterly opposed to Labour because of history. This is not the case now. So you've got to put the Māori Party, in my view, in with the centre-left bloc,
right?
And that makes a difference. So the block's there, but it's going to be a difficult relationship. But they've got the long-term thing established, and the Māori Party and the Labour are going to have to work together. There's no question.
The significant thing on the polls, though, is even before Judith Collins was rolled, there was about a 2 to 3% swing through November from Labour Green to National ACT, and there's no reason not to think there'll be a little bit more, and then it really is game on. And
it will be.
And I think the government will be hoping that after the summer, COVID comes back, there's another lockdown next winter, and everything becomes about COVID again, because that's good for the Prime Minister. As soon as the focus goes on housing, inequality, poverty, then obviously the Labour Party becomes a complete joke.
And inflation, because this is the other thing that hasn't hit. And I think you were talking about it last week. Inflation is running at 2.2% in the last 90 days, which is about 9% on an annualised basis. So, and if that stays, then you're looking at mortgage rates of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11%. And at that point, this government is done. And I don't know how they're going to deal with that.
Matthew, the 200,000 female voters that National lost to Labour, right, and their average age is up above 45, are they going to vote for a wealthy evangelical? Why is that female vote going to swing behind National. My reading of those numbers, and maybe you've had a bit of delve, but it seemed to be that Labour won back all of those female votes that they lost to Key. Are those 45-year-old women going to go back to Luxon?
Well, some will.
Or do you think they will solidify behind Jacinda?
I don't think large groups of voters sort of move all together. Everyone has different motives.
Yep.
There are plenty of women voters who care about inflation. There's plenty of women who care about, obviously, poverty, housing and inequality, which, on those measures, Labor should be out completely. I mean, I support the current government. Don't get me wrong.
That demographic are going to...
this current government has done more for me than any government in history.
Right.
It has enriched me tax-free more than any government in history. It's taxed the poor and given that money, and people that save money, thrifty, hard-working people have been taxed, and the money's been given to people like me. And I've got to support the Prime Minister for that. I support her wholeheartedly on that. And now what she's doing, even better, she's going to inflate away my debt. So if you... I think Jacinda is wonderful.
Damien, New Zealand first.
I am in an exactly similar
Matthew
situation.
I mean, it's
this is going to be my 90-second rant, because you're absolutely right. It's
I've made more money
than
in my entire life from doing absolutely nothing, and I have Jacinda and Grant and Adrian.
Damien, New Zealand first. Damien, New Zealand first is on 2.5%, and that's striking distance for Winston. Could New Zealand First rob Act of forming a government in 2023, and how would you personally feel about that?
Yes, I think Winston can come back, but for Winston to come back, you need something. Remember, he came back with that recording, right?
The teacup.
He needs something, and credit to him, because he was looking like a loser when that came, and then it came up, and that gave him the edge to get back. I think he will run it again. But I think something will need to happen to give him that edge. And he got lucky last time, but no, I don't think he will get lucky again. I think he is a busted flush.
Matt, at what poll level should Labour start getting nervous? What's their number going to drop to before Jacinda goes, okay, let's call Matt McCarten in again?
No, well, you had me there until that comment. Thank you very much. I think whatever the number is in the poll, which is coming out this week, is the number they need to worry about.
Really?
Because it's going to be good for National, right? Luxon is going to give them a lift. And so there's no question. But keep in mind, that all the vote in the provinces was really a gift to Jacinda, which he won't have next time. Those seats, I mean, we've never seen it like it's a landslide.
They won every seat except Epsom.
Right. Basically. Yeah. Well, sort of. So what you have is the provinces are going to go back to National. There's no question in my mind.
Or Act or New Zealand First, but it makes a difference. Which of those?
But coming to New Zealand First, could he do it again? Well, we all know what happens when you write him off, right? Just keeps coming. But he is a lot older.
So at some point he has to...
And so Damien, he needs to come up. What could he come up with about? God, it has to be about the provinces. National's going to get that back because Luxon's not so silly, and the only message he's going to have is don't let the Greens in and run in the show with Labor. Keep us there, but I don't think that's enough.
The handbrake.
That's all he's got.
Matthew, what does Labor need to do to push its polling back up? What have they got to do?
Have another lockdown next winter. Keep all the focus on COVID. Continue with, all that sort of thing.
So leak the virus.
Well, I mean,
maybe not.
Maybe not
quite going that far, but that sort of thing.
Sure,
and then that
crisis is good for a government,
right?
And Jacinda, it's just been a gift. She's managed it well, and I think we've got to give credit to that.
In what way?
Because if you look at
low
no. All they got to do is you look at the rates, right? You look at the American rates to us, we'd have 13,000 dead and we have 20 dying a day. It's as simple as that.
Lucky those billionaires got her to close the border when she wasn't wanting to. And lucky the billionaires went and met her and said, we're running these ads unless you cancel the March 15th memorial where Jacinda Ardern wanted 7,000 people from all around New Zealand to go to an indoor venue in Christchurch because she wanted that memorial, and enormous pressure came on from a group of billionaires.
Matthew, you're so
who
bitter
forced
of
her
success.
to cancel it. I mean, there is no.
She's kept us all alive, and you just
Well,
cannot say
thank you.
thank you.
When are you gonna say
I
thank you?
only want
I
to
wanna-
say to Jacinda,
I wanna thank the
thank you
billionaires.
for giving me money I didn't earn.
Well, I do want to thank you for
And
that.
my
I
life.
hate you.
And my life.
No,
But-
I think I do. I've got
but we need
Jacinda.
more people dead.
No, I've got Jacinda to thank for how wealthy I've got over the last 4 years, but I have the billionaires, and I think
To really
thank
thank.
for getting the border closed,
Sure.
because she did not. She was. We all forget she did it.
Oh.
She has did it throughout this crisis.
just
And
not
she has
true.
come
It is true.
under
It's
huge
not
pressure.
true, Matthew.
Not true.
All she did was eventually she closed the borders, and then she did a lockdown. Eventually,
you can make your complaints to the Broadcasting Standards.
You know?
Let's
and then forgot to order the vaccine.
let's break. Let's pause for a quick advert, and we're back
A
after
quick
issue
advert.
3.
Should be a long
The
advert.
Working Group is brought to you by Gravity Credit Management. When the weight of capitalism is becoming the event horizon of an imploding black hole, call 0800 Gravity, and our team will get blood out of a stove. That's 0800 Gravity. This is the Working Group.
Comrades, we must move on to issue 3. 2021 was the year that a self-identifying bat won Bird of the Year. As we attempt to make sense of the political scores, we need to rank and rate the best and worst political moments of 2021 with our panel of gurus. Damien, best political moment 2021?
I think it has to be Judith Collins' assassination of Simon Bridges. It was a murder-suicide. I don't know if that was necessarily her intention. But it worked. But I also liked the way it played out at the end, where Simon Bridges, when he saw the writing was on the wall, he went to Luxon, fell on a sword, got finance spokesman, and saw Judith Collins squashed out the other end. The whole Machiavellian nature of that 48 hours was just magnificent. You can't go past it.
Mr. Hooton, best political moment 2021?
Oh well, it was more in the beginning of the year when the Reserve Bank was still printing money, sending it across to Grant Robertson, who was throwing it out the door in order to inflate the property market. That's obviously
That was a special moment
That's
for
a
you.
special moment for me.
That was the icing on the cake.
And then when I heard inflation was going above the
Even
threshold,
happier,
I was even happier.
Mr. McCarten, best political moment 2021?
This is the most pro-capitalist government this country's ever seen. Socialism for the rich is everywhere. They've been dishing it up by former Clark staffers. Can't help the rich enough, and the poor are getting screwed and screwed and screwed. And Damien knows this as well. With the inflation going up, the money that Orr and these guys been pouring it out, about $30 billion? The
56
banks
billion.
just
56
keep
billion.
shoveling it out to people like Matthew and his mates and that. Tax-free money. It's going to destroy our country. It's going to destroy.
I think
glad to hear
that's
that.
probably right. But one thing I'd correct you on,
probable.
People
I
are
don't
going to
think-
get done, but look,
I don't think they mean to do this. It's a mistake.
No. It's all deliberate.
They're just
It's all
incompetent.
deliberate.
Oh, it is
No.
not deliberate.
It is
They're
deliberate.
trying
It's
to
the
help the poor,
monetarist
they're just
got.
useless.
Inflation is coming, and it's because they're giving money to the rich. There's always plenty of money for that.
That is
They think that printing money and giving it to the poor helps the poor. I mean, they genuinely think that.
Yeah,
They
I
haven't
know.
been
In
giving
fact,
it to
it
the
helps
poor.
the rich, but
They've
they-
been giving it to people to buy
Well,
houses
wages.
which produce no jobs.
Well,
Damien,
But
worst
that is a lack of competence. It's a lack of basic
No, it's
understanding of
ideological.
economics.
So you think they're nasty?
No taxes. I think that what they've done to get their middle class vote, the property owners, they've just shoved them the poor people's money, what the poor people are going to have to pay. But anyway, the thing
give
which
them far
I
too much
actually
credit.
like the most, I like the most this year, is the little things. And I thought that Jacinda making a point of getting tampons to poor schools for teenage girls
Important.
was really important. I just think
Yep,
no one
amen.
else thinks like that.
Amen.
And I just think to poor people, to poor girls whose parents can't afford it, that was great. So I think those little things they
worst
do matter.
political moment 2021, Damien. Worst political moment.
The return of the bureaucratic class. These people are just, I hate everything about them. It's almost like, can you remember in the British Empire, and they would send these private school elites to some university, and so they can sit there and train them to run some colony. You go and you have a look at Sir George Grey. He's got a statue in the park near the university. Like 27 years old, he was running, I can't remember, South Africa or somewhere. And this is exactly what we have done here again. We are seeing the return of the intellectually vacant, ideologically bereft, born to rule management class, and it breaks my heart because these numpties are going to win, and it is a tragedy.
What do you mean the return?
I feel you're holding back. Mr. Hooton,
they've always been here. There's no return.
Where's political moment 2021?
I think it was that bill with the COVID powers, not the content of it so much as the fact that they kept it secret. They moved the parliament into urgency. They rammed it through in 24 hours with no selectivity, and it was removing fundamental rights of citizens. There was no need for what they did. They kept it secret for their own reasons. They consulted, they say privately, the business sector, the unions and some iwi. Well, frankly, the business sector, the unions and the iwi can make submissions to a select committee process rather than having secret talks with the government about legislation. And, I know it's a nerdy thing, but it was condemned by Amnesty International, the Human Rights Commission, the Speaker, Trevor Mallard, and to remove the rights of people, their freedom, their ability to move around might be justified on public health grounds, it might be, but you sure as hell could at least have a week of select committee hearings before doing it.
Political moment 2021, Matt?
Well, the one was worse, but I enjoyed it immensely. It was the nastiest of Nationals being exposed all year through Collins. And I think that with her now gone, I think the hatcheting of Bridges. But don't get that. He was the third. Nick Smith was one.
Yes. Yes.
She went through, and Muller and Gleeson, she was a hatchet, and she was
Brownlee was going to be fourth.
Well, I'm sure he was. And so that's gone. We've got a return now of niceness. And I think, but this year, I know that Dame's just bitter. He's full of hate. But those of us on the left, that we have love of the people, and I think is that this year, I think if she had succeeded, it would have brought not a Muldooners, because he was better than that, but there was something just nasty in politics.
Question to all of you. What was a dumber idea, the Auckland bike bridge or shutting down all MIQ 2 days before Omicron was discovered?
The bike bridge. The bike bridge was magnificent.
$750 million.
That's like 4 days of Grant Robinson's money printing. I mean, come on, at least.
I'm with Damien. I totally agree.
At least we would have actually seen something for all of the billions and billions of dollars.
Mr. Hooton?
Well, as long as the bridge was going to be built with printed money by Adrian Orr, I obviously have to support it. It was going to be with printed money, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Man, dumbest idea. Surely shutting down, Nationals called to shut down all the MIQ 2 days before Omicron came out. I went, that's right.
Omicron, I'm so over it.
It happens. No one is. I actually think, the bridge is a great idea. And you have a walkway over there too. If I could get away with it, it'd be a great idea. But the MIQ, the whole thing's been mismanaged, right? Yeah. It's just from start to finish. It was always unnecessary.
Best politician, Damien.
Seymour. I don't think you can. He's capitalised on the opportunities that were there. He's kept his team together. They are disciplined. There's been no breakouts. I don't think you can really criticise. I don't think you can find anybody who has played a better game than David Seymour this year.
Mr. Hooton?
Agree with that. So I'll have to nominate someone else, which is obviously Jacinda Ardern, who has been
built your wealth,
kind and ineffectual all year, and long, may it continue.
Best politician, Matt?
Well, those are two right for different reasons, right? But I think that the Māori Party's really carved out a permanent space in the politics of New Zealand, like was originally set up to do. And I think that they have cemented that in this year. I see the latest polls at 3%, and I think that's going to build and good.
But why do the majority of Māori not support it?
Well, they went with National last time, right, and that eroded. and they were too old, getting older, Pete and Tatiana. This is a new generation.
Yeah.
But still,
they're
8 out of
independent.
10 Maori are not supporting them,
No, but
which I think is great. I hate the idea that people vote on racial lines.
But you got half of the Māori on the general roll, and then you got the half, and it's all about those 7 seats. Forget the rest of it. It's just those 7 seats. They, against all odds, they got one back.
And that underlines it's not on racial grounds.
Worst politician, Damien. Worst politician, 2021.
Look,
There are so many. There are so many, right?
I think
top 5.
I think the worst politician was Judith, and I think the reason for that is she was so paranoid and so backward looking. I think she missed an opportunity. I think if Judith has the political skills and the talent that if she had focused on the government, I think that she could have held on. But the assassination of Nick Smith, the attack on Muller, created a dynamic inside her caucus that I think it seemed to me that she spent more time worrying about her caucus and not enough time focused on the government. And so for the missed opportunity, I'm going to nominate Judith.
Worst politician?
Look, I don't mean this in a nasty way. I mean it more in sorrow than anger, but I actually think it's James Shaw.
I thought he'd retired. Is he still around?
Exactly. And he's the climate change minister.
Pretty hopeless result. Hopeless result.
He hasn't really delivered anything. He went to that thing and the blah, blah, blah thing in Glasgow. He's come back. He actually escaped MIQ, which was such a bad look. And it's like they have to get rid of him, the Greens, I think, before the next election because he really is a gnat. And he's just not right for their brand. The problem they have is I don't think they've got a male. There's that guy, the Mexican projectionist guy. Ricardo. I mean,
he's great.
I think what they will need to do is change their constitution from currently you've got to have a man and a woman. Well, obviously there's no such thing. Right. So it should be perhaps that you can only have no more than one person that identifies as a male and get rid of him. Yeah.
I'll put my hand up.
Yep.
That's how many Greens in the whole country had listened to Matt's advice.
Right. Well, that's wise of him, probably.
Here's the thing. I think, anyway, James, I think, has actually been part of the success of the Greens.
Okay.
Right? It's actually mainstreamed them. And he's been very astute and all that. And they've been there. They're always there. And they'll be in the next government. No question in my mind. Now, put that aside. I think the worst, and I don't mean it because he's a mate, but David Clark had this 6-week gap is where he didn't turn up to a meeting and pay attention. He's bright, but what the hell happened? He made those mistakes in COVID in Dunedin and lost his ministerialship because of what happened, because he went on bike rides and things whenever it was locked down. But then that thing of not responding to the vax thing for 6 to 8 weeks, like where would he have been if that had happened? And it's extraordinary he's not been hung with that. Best party,
Damien. Best party 2021.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to have to say ACT, but it's too easy. I mean, that's everybody else has been.
We know what.
ACT has doubled its support. Of course,
I mean, you can't go past it.
Right, it's pretty good. Best party.
Yeah, ACT double. If Jacinda Ardern did that, she'd be 100%.
Best party.
True.
Māori party.
But they're the same place that they were a year ago.
No, that's the thing. I mean, that's amazing. I think the ACT party is all temporary. I think once the scrutiny, it's like when we're in the alliance, right? It was all fine when you're the protest party and you were there, right? When the scrutiny come on, then we had problems. ACT, as we know, go past Seymour, you got problems. And they've been very disciplined, so I agree with all the analysis here tonight. But that won't stay the same. It looks like a national ACT government. Then you're going to see it, and I think then it's going to fall apart.
Damien, worst party 2021.
I think the Greens, for the reasons that Matthew outlined. There really hasn't been significant progress on the environmental issues. But I think the real failure of the Greens, the catastrophic failure of the Greens, was they should have got behind the ETS. because the ETS, the emissions trading scheme, is a means by which we can get to net carbon zero. It's there. All you got to do is increase the price and you get to net carbon zero. And I think the Greens' failure to get behind that and push all of this other stuff is actually alienating people from their agenda.
But the Greens want to overthrow capitalism. That's a capitalist measure. Of course, they don't want the ETS to work.
No, they don't. They just want to have the pollution price included into the cost of the product, so the market can work it out. It's still they're still middle class. They're very middle class.
Strange.
Where's Party? Why?
Labor for that legislation. I mean, it's difficult to believe that people who pretend they're social democrats, liberals, people, constitutionalists. I mean, it's worse than the foreshore and seabed to have rammed through that type of legislation. I think anti-vaxxers are nut bars, but to be removing their rights under urgency is despicable.
Matt,
because it's national. I mean, they've been a disaster.
Oh yeah, forgot about them.
It's just a given. They've been a shocking opposition. We talk about act as if they're the opposition. The up and coming.
The de facto opposition.
De facto leader of the opposition.
National look, having been someone who's been in a party
You're still
in
someone,
trouble
Matt.
in the 20s.
Yes.
Why, when Key was at his height and Jacinda was at its height, right? I feel their pain.
Of course.
Cunliffe was nothing compared with Collins. Collins is far worse than
No. But
Cunliffe.
what Damien has said before, I thought was an important point, is that you become obsessed about the internals. And that's what Judith did. And that's what Cunliffe was doing. It's all about the internals within the deck chairs on the ship, instead of thinking outwardly. I think is absolutely right, is that Collins, her only way, it was Cunliffe's only way, go external, speak past your caucus, speak to the people. That's your way of survival. And they just both didn't do it. They became obsessed by the mechanics inside, and it was doomed.
Damien, political prediction for next year. Go.
I think you are going to see the government face a terrible crisis because I think the polls are going to move against them. I think there is going to be a sense of inevitability about a change of government. And it's going to be interesting to see how this government reacts, because I think they've got two choices. They can either decide to fight and somehow moderate their behaviour and stop all of this crazy woke stuff, or they double down and they seize the commanding heights of the economy and go full Matt McCarten. But my prediction is that they'll be stuck like a deer in their headlights. They won't know what to do and they won't know how to react.
Mr. Hooton, political prediction 2022.
Well, we'll have this summer, and I think people will thank the Prime Minister and think that's because of her.
And it is.
But then what will happen is sort of into February, March, people will then start to be back to business as usual and worry about housing inequality and poverty and education and stuff like that. And National Act will go up, and Labour and the Greens will be down, because remember in February 2020, Simon Bridges was on track to being Prime Minister before COVID came. But then luckily, COVID will, as the winter comes, COVID will come back, there'll be another lockdown, and everyone will love Jacinda again and Ashley and all that nonsense.
Matt, political prediction for next year, 2022.
I actually don't think another round of COVID will help the Prime Minister. I think that people are over it. They will want life to be back to normal and they'll blame her for it. But I think the thing that's going to happen next year, the economic crisis is going to hit. The inflation is going to hit. They bailed out too much money, printing money. The richer got richer, the poorer got poorer. And you're going to hit. You've got to, and you got to, and it's going to hit. And I think that this government has had a soft ride.
Yep.
And I think the people in there are not hardened.
Yes.
I think they will get possums in the headlight. They won't want to do nasty things. They won't want to be hard. They won't want to fight. They'll kind of think that if we can just kumbaya our way out, it's going to be okay, and they're going to get a reality check. I think, well, leave it with this. I think they will still get back in, because New Zealanders are pretty. I think our general view is every government gets 6 years. If you're useless, you get kicked out at half time, which is very unusual. But if you're okay, you get another extra time. You get 9, and that's it. And so I think Jacinda's got another term in her. It'll be close, but she'll get it.
Comrades, will she be a David Longy and bail after 5?
No.
Because did anybody see David Longy quitting? Because that was out of the blue, wasn't it?
No, but he had the tensions. Look, Jacinda is supreme in the party.
Yeah.
Right? There's no question.
As was Longy.
Longy had to quit. The caucus
He
voted
did-
back
He
Douglas
lost
into
by
the
vote.
cabinet.
He lost that
Yeah.
Preble got put back in.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Douglas them. They ran it.
And he went, screw this, I'm out of here.
And as Preble said, he goes, today we lost by one vote. The Prime Minister has to win every week. We just have to win one. When you got a machine like that pulling you apart in your party, it was over.
Oh, that is Oliver Cromwell and Charles I.
Pretty
That
much.
is a
Comrades,
direct-
I remember
that's
it
a
well.
direct
I was
quote.
there.
Comrades,
For
we need
Oliver
to...
Cromwell.
Yeah, pretty much.
We need to wrap this show now with a final word. Damien Grant, your rant for 90 seconds, please. Go to the mountaintop, brother.
I cannot go past what I've said a couple of times in this podcast, where we see the stormtroopers, the return of the empire. I absolutely loathe this managerial class, the managers of other people's capital, the people who do not have the initiative, the courage, the wisdom, the gonads to go out there and build their own thing. They can't, they won't. They sit there and they manage other people's capital, and they do it well, and they come up with this hubris that they think, goodness, Luxon was going around saying, I'm a good manager of teams. Of course you're a good manager of teams, because you've got billions of Unilever's money or Air New Zealand's money to go out and buy them. You go out there on the coalface and you build your own business from scratch and with no capital. Then, if you do that, I will accept that you, sir or ma'am, are a good manager of teams. We are seeing the return of the inadequate, of the dull, of the boring, of the insipid, of the morally and politically vacuous and vacant. And he's going to win, and it breaks my heart.
Matthew Hooton, your final word this week.
Well, it comes from when Matt was just talking before, and I think that Matt's problem in politics and in political commentary
Let's hear it.
is that he's still part of the reality-based community. and I think that Matt thinks that politics should be about things like, helping the poor, quality of the schools, the hospitals,
Sure,
tax, whether
sure.
it should go up or down, building roads or other infrastructure.
But it's not that anymore.
No.
What is it?
And it's about, and Matt probably thinks that when a politician says something, they should not within 24, 48 hours or even after a year say the opposite thing.
Matt does believe that. Matt does believe that.
Well, see, that's the problem. That's part of the reality-based form of
that's your
politics.
problem,
And
Matt.
that's not where we are anymore.
No, where are we?
Now you just sort of say whatever you want and no one follows it up. And
There is no truth.
And
It's what you say it is.
yeah, and you're sort of
Look at
expressive.
Trump,
So that, for example, a lot of people think that Kiwi Build failed and that there is still a housing crisis, but no. In sort of in a postmodern way, the 100,000 houses were built. That in a way. No, not physically, but sort of in an idealistic sort of way they were. And poverty, yes, we know all the data shows poverty is growing, but in another way of looking at it, it hasn't. Now there's children, they've all got shoes, they're all going to school and learning. Because often the Prime Minister goes to a school and the children do all have shoes and they're learning when the Prime Minister's there with Jessica and Tova. And so
Please stop.
So the thing that I think the thing that I would like to see in my lifetime is a return to the type of politics that people like Matt or Damien or my friend Ruth Richardson or my friend Sue Bradford believe in, where there is at least a rough connection between reality and what's going on in politics. But I doubt it.
Matt, your final word, please.
I'm so depressed.
Oh, you're just going to give us more reality, aren't you?
Okay, well, here's a number. There's a waiting list for accommodation in this town of Auckland of 30,000, and there's 30,000 investment homes sitting empty. So here's the problem. It's less now. Anyway,
Not having my investment home. You're not moving poor people into my investment home, Mr. McCarten. No.
Exactly. I say anyway. So that's a reality. That's right. If you want to solve a crisis, well, that's how you do it. I think that the capitalist class has morphed. I think there is a managerial class. I find it my union work that they all sit on each other's boards. They don't do anything. They're bureaucrats, and so I always take that into account. In the old days, you had a capitalist in the work, and his four partners. There's the managerial class, which are quite separate. There's the owner class. There's the workers, and then there's the consumer, who wants everything for the cheapest as possible. And that's a dynamic of how our power relationships work. And my rant is that the managerial class do run it, and they run politics too. and they don't produce anything. They are putting us into a crisis. The inflation rate is going to continue. It's going to get higher and higher. They've been shelling out money, other people's money, and printing it, and it's going to hit the wall. It's going to hit the wall, and it's going to bloody explode.
Thank you, comrades. To my final word this week. New Zealanders respect rich businessmen the way they respect head principals at private schools. A mixture of fear, subservience, and sexual excitement. But we don't like too rich. We don't like too rich because that brings with it pretensions, and we despise that as New Zealanders. Key always dressed down and played down his wealth. Luxon can't help demand everyone looks, as his blessings are because of Jesus. Luxon defensively answered a question over him gaining $2.3 million on one house as, "You can attack me for being successful." I can't defend that. No one was attacking him for being successful. People were raising questions about an evangelical Christian with some far-out beliefs who was so rich he didn't notice gaining $2.3 million. Folks, if I had anything at all that gained $2.3 million, I'd bury it in the middle of the Squid Games homicide Disneyland for safekeeping. Old Christian Lex Luthor wasn't even aware. There's out of touch, and then there's hire a black Mercedes to drive him across the road out of touch. How many houses would Jesus own? That was The Working Group, New Zealand's greatest political weekly podcast that isn't funded by New Zealand On Air. Our thanks to Matthew Hooton, Matt McCarten, Damien Grant. This will be uploaded on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Rover, and YouTube. We will see you 7:30 p.m. next Monday for our live end of year special to review the political year with Dr. Bryce Edwards and National Party MP Jerry Brownlee. We're out. See you next week.